Welcome to Southampton High School. I would like to introduce our participants to you. I'm Kim Rodriguez. I'm the Director of College and Career Counseling, and our participants are
Regan Kimbach, mother of Callie Kimbach.
Can you hear them okay?
Yeah, I can. Hi, Callie. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming out today.
Okay, so have at it.
All right, wonderful. Yeah, so my name is Matt Latessa. I am the Assistant Dean of Admission. I'm also the Coordinator of Multicultural Recruiting at Franklin and Marshall College. I happen to be the Long Island Regional Dean. And so just kind of an overview of how the admission world works at most colleges. I'm sure you're probably pretty familiar with this model, is that we sort of break the country down regionally, and each member of our office has a certain sort of territory that they recruit students. They come to visit. Chances are I or someone from our office will be visiting Southampton High School in the fall. We do college fairs and all sort of stuff like that. If you see F&M at a college fair, chances are I'll be standing at the table, all stuff like that. That also means that I do read all of the applications for all students that attend schools on Long Island, and sort of do the reading and evaluation process, and I present students in the committee process. So when admission folks come to make decisions on applications, I am the person that brings up your application to present to the committee. So it's always important, not just at F&M, but at all the colleges that you're going to end up applying to get to know the regional dean, or whatever they're called. Sometimes they're called admission counselors, or some sort of other regional representative, to figure out who that is for your school, and to try to get to know that person through phone calls, maybe through interviews if you can, through going to visit their campuses, all sorts of stuff like that. That relationship is always a good thing. If I know who you are when I'm presenting you in committee, it's a good thing for you about 99.9% of the time. So that's just sort of how recruiting works from a regional standpoint. Now, I was hoping that we could do sort of an overview of Franklin and Marshall College and what we're all about, and then maybe see if you had any questions. We could go ahead and talk a little more generally about the college search as well. So F&M, we are named after Benjamin Franklin and John Marshall. So yes, it is that Franklin. A lot of people think it must be some other Franklin. And we are in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So it's a comfortable distance away from your community. You know, it's not too far away. You know, it's not, you don't have to fly, but it's also not right around the corner. So you can get home in a day if you need to, but it's not too far. Neat little thing about F&M is that we do have an Amtrak station right in Lancaster, and so I mean, I don't know if you use the trains a lot to get around, but it is particularly easy to get back to Penn Station from Lancaster if you have someone come and pick you up in the city or want to take the Long Island Railroad. However, for me, I'm actually from Ohio, so I did go pretty far away from home. I actually went to F&M, and I graduated in 2012. Anyway, we were named after Benjamin Franklin and John Marshall, and we were founded in 1787. So it is quite a historic place. And F&M really stands for three distinct pillars that we really believe in are the foundation of the experience here. The first is obviously academics. So we have an excellent academic curriculum. The second is that it happens in a supportive community. And that you're always going to feel that you're working with your students, with your peers and your faculty mentors as you go through your education. And the third pillar is that it's very individualized. And so it's your education, it's in a supportive place, and it's a place that is going to push you to work pretty hard academically. Just by the numbers, F&M has about 2,300 students, and so we're small. And we're all undergraduate, and we do that on purpose so that every single one of your classes will be taught by a professor, so that you'll have better opportunities to get to know your professors well. There's no TA that gets in the way of the relationship between you and your professors, and that the professors have more time to focus on their undergraduates. At a lot of big research universities, the professors are doing their research, they're using their master's and PhD students to help with that research, and then a TA teaches the lectures. At F&M, only 5% of our classes are lectures anyway, and every single one of those classes is taught by by the PhD, by the person who designed the curriculum for that class, and who often did write some material that you'll use in the class. And so you get very, very great access to knowledge creators who are sort of the driving force of the institution. So the total enrollment is 2,300, and the highest degree that we offer at F&M is a bachelor's degree. And the average class size at F&M is 16. So we want our classes to be very small, and we do that on purpose because we really think that that small, interactive, experiential learning really encourages students to push themselves academically and also personally as well. A lot of research opportunities come from faculty-student relationships that you're going to be working in small groups a lot at F&M, and oftentimes you'll be working with a professor in a small group as well. So you get to know that person quite well. They might invite you to do some research in their lab, to help out on a project, to stay over the summer. We have this great program called the Hackman Scholarship that allows you to earn a stipend and stay on campus over the summer and do research and earn money for it. So that's a really neat program. That's a summer program as well. There's a 9-to-1 student-to-faculty ratio at F&M as well. So again, that's just going right back to the idea that it is a very sort of mind-on-mind sort of academic environment, that you're never going to be in a lecture hall with 100 people in it. In fact, our biggest class is Intro to Psychology, has about 40 students in it. However, that class is a lab class, and so there are 2 lab sections of about 20 students each within that lecture. So at least once a week, you're going to be working in smaller groups of 20 rather than that bigger group of 40. And what's really neat about F&M is as you go through your education, the classes get smaller. For example, the average class size of a 400 level class, so that's like a senior capstone class, has about 10 students in it. And the smallest class that I ever was in at F&M had 5 students in it. And so it's very often that you have a class that's like that at F&M. It holds you accountable to the work. There are 5 students in a class. Everyone knows if you didn't do the reading, if you're one of those 5 students. And it helps you get to know your peers because we have a lot of discussion-based classes, so you are encouraged to participate, and it helps you get to know your professors not just as teachers, but as sort of friends and mentors as well. One of my favorite experiences at F&M, and this is something that all students have, it's one of the first events at orientation, is that you actually have dinner with your professor, with your first year sort of advisor, and go to their house with your cohort of students, about 16 students, to their house and have dinner with their family. So it's a literal open door policy for students at F&M the second that they walk on campus to be able to work with their professors and get to know them quite well. What's neat about F&M is we're very research driven. So a lot of people think, well, it's a liberal arts college, you can't get a master's degree there, so chances are you won't be doing a lot of research. That's not necessarily true. Over 2/3 of our students actually do some sort of independent research at F&M, and 40% of our faculty publications are co-authored by F&M students. So the 2 main types of research are an independent study. That's where you, as a student, choose a topic that interests you, work with an advisor, and do either a semester-long or year-long project for class credit. Or you can work with the professor on their research and be a co-author and become published in your field. And so that gives you a really great advantage, particularly if you're going on to graduate school, to be an undergraduate who is already published. And that happens a lot at F&M. And not just in the sciences. Again, people hear research and they think sciences. I myself was an American Studies major, and 2 things that I did at F&M that I never thought you could have earned credit for was I wrote an ethnography about record stores in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I worked at a music blog for a semester for credit. And so I never thought that those were things that you could do and call it school, but at F&M we really empower our students to do those sort of activities. So it really is a place where you as a student can discover what you're passionate about and really dive into that curriculum head first. Do you have any questions about the academics so far at F&M? Or?
About the house system?
Yeah, about our house system. But that's
Oh, sorry, could you repeat that question? I didn't quite hear you on the mic, sorry.
They have a question about the house system, the residential system?
Yeah, certainly. So the college houses at F&M are actually something that does separate us from a lot of other liberal arts colleges because it's a very communal vibe. There are 5 college houses at F&M, and every single student on campus is a member of one of those 5 college houses. And so it's an academic space, There's actually a seminar room. The only class that you are required to take in your first semester at F&M is a writing seminar. And so that class is always held in your college house. And so it's an academic space. You're at least taking one class there. It's a residential space. Obviously, you're living there with your peers. And it is sort of a combination of those two things. It really becomes a home away from home. Every single one of our college houses has these very comfortable common rooms where students can hang out, big comfy couches, things that you would imagine, and a library where students can borrow books and really use for their own pleasure. But what really separates the college houses apart is that each one of these student houses has a government. And so F&M is a great place, particularly if you like getting involved in your community, because you can have an active voice even as a freshman. We have first-year students who become leaders of their college houses quite easily. There are simply more seats in the student governments to fill. F&M actually has 6 student governments, one for each college house and then one for the entire student body rather than just one, like other colleges might. And so that gives you as a student the ability to advocate for your interests. Each one of the house governments actually has a budget of about $15,000 a year that the student governments are able to determine how to spend however they want. And when I say however they want, I mean however they want. Most of those funds are actually used to bolster community events, so dances and bringing singers on campus and bringing speakers on campus, all sorts of social activities that happen between the houses that they collaborate on. A lot of funds are used for that. Also, funds are used for house-specific events. Every single college house has a free bagel breakfast once a week. Every college house does some sort of prom-style dance in the fall or in the spring. It's a lot of fun. And one house, this is probably my favorite use of house funds, decided that they wanted to play video games in their free time. So they went out and bought an Xbox using college funds. And so big or small. So a big event, you want to bring someone who's nationally known on campus to address the whole campus community, or you just want to buy a DVD for the collection for the college house. It's totally up to the students how they do it. Furthermore, the constitutions are actually amended by the student governments themselves. So students not only have a say in sort of the activities that happen in their college house, but also the way the student government is run. There is, for example, a prime minister of one house, and a chancellor at another house, and a president of another house, and one of them has an assembly of peers. So each house sort of develops their own personality based on the students who are in those house governments. And even if you're not in the house governments, they all have meetings that are open to everyone that lives in the house and is a member of the house that you can go to and advocate for your interests. So if student government's your thing, plenty of opportunities at F&M for you. If not so much, you can still make sure that your interests are taken care of as a student in the college houses. Now, logistically, college houses have all 4 years of students in them, and you don't have to live in the college house for all 4 years. Housing is guaranteed for 4 years, though, so you can if you want to. However, what happens most commonly is that students will live for 2 years in their college house and then 2 years off campus. And off campus, technically, it's still campus housing, which is kind of weird to conceptualize, but they're apartments that F&M contracts out that are no more than 3 blocks away from campus that students can go through the college to rent. So you don't have to go out and find your own landlord. You don't have to go out on your own apartment search. Some of them are even right across the street from campus. And so there is a lottery system that students sort of have a choosing order. Based on your lottery number, you can choose of the available apartments where you want to live. But outside of that, it's all coordinated through the college to streamline the process for students, which is quite nice. I can honestly say that I actually live as an administrator now. I live in college housing, and I lived in an apartment as a student. I think my apartment was nicer when I was a student than it is now as an administrator. So F&M really does take care of its students in terms of housing, which is quite nice. Had you heard anything like about the college houses before this session, or?
I just was reading up on it last night, because we had somebody who suggested Franklin and Marshall, to visit Franklin and Marshall, and then we saw that Skyping today, so last night I had a small opportunity to, and I saw that because it said something about Hogwarts style
Yeah, a lot of people, sometimes people do, compare it to the Harry Potter style houses. What's really funny is that F&M also has a club Quidditch team too. So not only do we have the housing model, we have the sport as well. So it's quite fun to watch actually a Quidditch game if you ever have the chance.
Do you want to ask about sports, Kelly? That's what they're interested in.
Do you have equestrian? Is that what you
Yeah,
want?
yeah.
Do you have an equestrian team?
So yeah, that is a club team, yeah. And if you come to campus, we can give you directions to the stable. It's about 15 minutes away from campus. And they're very active. They travel. They do the tournaments down in Florida every winter. And it is a pretty big club team here at F&M where you can continue riding as a student here at F&M.
Do you want to tell them when you're coming to visit? I mean, you're going to come see that, or you want to ask her a question?
Can you tell me a little bit about the study abroad program?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's not just one study abroad program, which is great. There are 200 of them. So you really get the chance to choose what you want to study and where you want to study it. We have a Joseph International House. It's actually right across the street from admission. And they have advisors that help you narrow down what program's right for you. We also have 4 programs that are led by F&M professors. So you have the opportunity to go with F&M students and an F&M professor if you choose to do that. However, what's most common is that students will do one of our 200 partner programs that will take you anywhere in the world except for Antarctica. And so, well, currently, right now, actually, we have students who are doing, this week is our spring break here on campus. And there's a cohort of students who are doing a medical public mission trip in Honduras currently as an alternative break. That's something that happens every single year and a lot of students are involved in. We also have summer programs in South Africa. A big program, one of the most popular programs is in Copenhagen. It's a semester program. And so it's not just, the chance to do it once or the chance to do it for a semester, but you can go abroad sort of in any way that you want to go abroad. I, for example, had a friend who spent her entire junior year in China. She now lives in China because she loved it so much and moved back right after graduation. So, there are a lot of opportunities out there for study abroad, and over half of our students do it at some time in their experience as a student at F&M. And I highly encourage it, whether you come to F&M or you go to a different college, wherever you end up, it's definitely a great opportunity. So don't lose out on that when you're a student in college, for sure.
You want to tell them why you're interested, Kelly?
Go ahead.
She's a dual language student, so she's
Okay.
going to study Spanish, right?
So we have a very unusual program here at Southampton in which many of our students have taken Spanish since kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
So Callie is a member of the class, actually our first
Bilingual.
fully bilingual dual language class.
That's great,
And what
yeah.
that means is that 25% of her curriculum is taught in Spanish.
Okay.
So we're finding that these students are really bilingual.
Yeah.
So she'll be taking AP Spanish Literature next year. She's taking
Uh-huh.
AP Spanish Language this year as a junior and AP Lit next year. Each year there's a language piece and a culture piece, but completely taught in Spanish. In intermediate school,
Mhm.
social studies was taught in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah, that's great.
we've actually been recognized as an International Spanish Academy.
Oh,
by the
awesome.
Spanish government.
That's great to hear, yeah. So yeah, Spanish is taught as both a major and a minor at F&M. So if that's one of your academic interests, you can definitely pursue it. Plenty of study abroad opportunities in Spain and in the Spanish-speaking world. So there are any number that you could choose from as far as going to a Spanish school and taking courses fully taught in Spanish. All of our courses here at F&M in the language departments are taught as full immersion. So from 101, probably wouldn't be taking that class anyway. It is all taught full immersion. However, what's great about it is we do accept credit for the AP exam. So a 4 or 5 on either of those AP exams will get you credit for the introductory Spanish classes at F&M. There's also a placement test that you could take if you wanted to, if you didn't want to, say, pursue Spanish as a language, or you wanted to start on a new one. You can test out of a lot of Spanish courses if you're fluent. I'm guessing you'll probably test out of the requirement. That's taken during orientation, but it is a full major and a full minor as well. And a lot of students will double major with Spanish being one of those majors. And double majoring isn't the most popular thing at F&M. You know, in between 10 and 15% of the schools doing it from year to year. But especially if you have a fluency in a language, it's a kind of natural way to get two majors out of your education at F&M.
You want to go on and give us a little bit more, and then they'll.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So the one thing that I didn't touch on that I'd like to touch on a little bit is just sort of our general education requirements, because we do keep those pretty light at F&M on purpose, so that students have the chance to really explore our curriculum in their first 2 years at F&M and all of the different departments that we offer. So there is a 2 science requirement. One of which has to be a lab. So every student at F&M does take at least one lab science. As I mentioned previously, psychology is taught as a lab science from the very first 100 level class. Then there is also a 3-semester requirement for foreign language. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we do offer 9 languages, so you can continue studying Spanish. If you want to, take Russian and try something new, you can. And they range from, Hebrew to Russian to Japanese, and a lot of different other choices in there as well. Then outside of that, there is a non-Western cultures requirement, an arts requirement, and a humanities requirement. Now that sounds like 3 courses, but many of our classes at F&M have dual designation. So for example, we have a class here at F&M called Introduction to Eastern Asian Art. That class is a non-Western cultures class. It is also an arts class, and it is also a humanities class. And so there's the potential to knock out all 3 of those requirements with one class, which is really nice. And then our last requirement is called a connections curriculum. And I briefly mentioned this earlier, but I think now is a pretty good time to talk a little bit more in depth about it. That this is that writing seminar that I mentioned earlier. And what's neat about that writing seminar is it actually places you into your college house. And so when you're registering for classes at F&M, you look at these 40 or so classes that we offer as writing seminar that range in topic from Civil War literature to biology to a math class called the Mathematics of Art. All different sort of range of classes that you can take, and you rank your top 5 or so. And we put you in one of your top 3 choices, and that class is then placed into a college house. And we cap those classes at 16 because we want it to be the average class size at F&M. And the professor of that class most of the time becomes your first year advisor. And what's neat about it is that a professor is actually working in a team of advisors. So say you sign up for a government writing seminar, but then you discover that you have a passion for economics, and maybe you want to major in economics. The professor that's teaching that writing seminar is working in a cohort of other professors, so he'll know an economics professor that he can refer you to think about that major. Now, what's great about F&M is you don't have to declare your major until the end of your 2nd year. So we do really want you to explore our curriculum and say, hey, maybe American Studies I thought was a great major for me, but I'm going to take a class in biology just to see what it's all about, and maybe you fall in love with that class. We want you to sort of take a lot of classes around your schedule just to see what interests you. For example, actually, I am in my office here, and one of my student workers is sitting next to me answering emails. He is a 2nd semester senior, and he's taking a flamenco dance class because he had space in his curriculum and needed an arts credit and thought it would be fun to learn how to do flamenco dance. And so it really is. There are these kind of times in your curriculum at F&M where you can just sign up for a class because it sounds fun, and we want you to do that because who knows what'll stick and what won't once you get on campus. Yeah. Have you thought about potential majors or minors yet, Callie?
Spanish, definitely. I don't know whether it would be major. Maybe finance, maybe business.
Okay, so I didn't quite hear you there. Sorry about that. I think I heard maybe business, maybe finance. Is that one of them in Spanish as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll talk about that a little bit because actually business organizations and societies is our biggest major on campus. It is actually it is a competitive major. It's our only competitive major. We do cap it at 85 students, but what that means is that if you take a couple prerequisites and keep a minimum GPA of I think 2.75 or 3.0 in that range, you can become that major. Most years we don't actually have to cap it because there are students competing into it. It's just a matter of keeping your grades up and sort of taking the prereqs. Now, it is a very liberal arts sort of approach to a business major. So you mentioned finance. What you would do as a business organizations and societies major is you would be that major, designated that major, but you could specialize in finance within that major. There are a couple of niche opportunities for finance students at F&M. We actually have a 5-year program where you could sit for your CPA exam after your 5th year. You would actually, and then you actually study off campus in your 5th year. You go to it's at Wake Forest actually. Within that major, there are a lot of different opportunities for you wherever your interests lie in sort of the business realm. One of my favorite programs to talk about is called the Student Managed Investment Portfolio. It is a program where students work in a group and they actually take money from our endowment and invest in the stock market for a semester. So it's not a simulation. It's not, a simulated stock market. You're using real money and investing in the stock market. And what's really neat is that in our government and business building here on campus, we have 4 Bloomberg terminals. So you can do that right from campus. You don't even have to leave your favorite building on campus to do it. They actually actively compete with our Board of Trustees every year. Last year, the Student Managed Investment Portfolio actually outperformed the Board of Trustees investment portfolio. So it's really fun. Now, unfortunately, students don't get to keep all of the money that they earn with their investments. It is reinvested in the endowment. But it goes back to that idea of experiential learning, that you're not just sort of thinking about the stock market or discussing it, but you're doing it. You are hands-on, really taking the leadership role in that sort of investment philosophy, which is great. It's not just theory; it's practice as well. I know liberal arts colleges get sort of a reputation for teaching students how to ask big questions, but maybe not giving them the tools to answer them. Here at F&M, we really also want you to know what the big questions are, but also know how to answer those big questions as well.
That's great.
Cool. Yeah.
Can
I can talk a little bit
just
just.
on the weekends.
Sorry?
Can you tell us a little bit about what life is like for students at F&M on the weekends?
Yeah, certainly. So the typical night at F&M is not deciding what is there to do, but deciding between options and still knowing that you probably have some homework or reading to do on top of that as well. There are over 150 student-run clubs and organizations on campus, so there's never a lack for anything to do socially. There is healthy Greek life as well. About 40% of our students are involved in Greek life, I think 7 fraternities and 5 sororities. I think we actually just were colonized with a new fraternity as well. So it might be up to 8, but I'm not quite 100% sure about that. However, it is a very healthy option. Those Greek organizations on campus are very service-based, so they're productive contributors to the campus environment. On a typical weekend, there'll be student activities going on, varsity athletic events happening on campus, and it's a very collaborative environment where you go to an orchestra performance and you see members of the football team there. You go to a football team and you see members of the orchestra cheering the team on. And so everyone likes to support each other at F&M, and you go to an event and you're always excited to see new faces in the crowd, which is nice. Now, I will say one of the biggest issues that F&M has is that first years kind of get overstretched sometimes because they get so excited about the opportunities and they join 5 clubs and they're going to a meeting every night and they're having fun with their friends, and then they still have 50 pages of reading to do and they just don't make time for it, or they forget to do a homework assignment. So it is a problem, but I think it's indicative of the type of students who come to F&M. They're eager, they're collaborative, and they really want to get involved in their community. I would say that's sort of what the weekend is like at F&M. It's a very residential campus, so not a lot of people go home on the weekend. So there are always students here. Even over spring break, there are a relative amount of students on campus. It doesn't quite feel like a ghost town, even in the down sort of moments on campus.
Great, thanks.
I have a question for freshmen. I've seen some colleges have like a first-year freshman, like touching base? Is that what the houses
Mm-hmm.
system is for? Or is there a class that they have to kind of touch base regarding their freshman load and how they're handling it? And what do you
Yeah.
think the house system is for?
Yeah, certainly. So that's exactly what the house system is for. So your professor of your first year writing seminar most often becomes your first year academic advisor. So you get to know this professor in an academic sense, and then you're meeting with them periodically throughout the semester in group and individual meetings to sort of think about, hey, what classes am I going to take next semester? How am I doing with the workload now? How does that translate to a particular major? Start thinking about those questions. Also within the college house, there are two faculty members that are full-time employees that help to support the student experience. There's a house dean who coordinates with the house governments, and there's a house don that also sort of supports students academically and socially. And so at any time for a first year in a college house, there are really at least three faculty members that they can reach out to: their first year professor, their house dean, and their house don, should anything arise. And they're very active. And so what's neat about F&M is living in the college house and taking a class there. You know, if you have a class that starts at 9 and at 9:15, you know, Joey hasn't shown up to class, the professor can send someone up to his room to knock on his door and see how he's doing. It is very sort of hands-on like that. Our faculty really are hands-on and concerned about the well-being and the productive development of our students.
Great. Okay. Oh, you have to go? All right. She used to go to softball.
Oh, okay.
But I have more questions.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly, yeah. Have a great day. It was nice chatting.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
After you started, we also were joined by Amy Prince, who's one of our school counselors here.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Excellent.
And Callie's.
Yes.
Yes, and also Callie's guidance counselor.
Oh, great. Awesome.
So, we were reading last night about merit scholarships. I
Uh-huh.
don't know if that was, we were reading about several schools. Do you offer merit scholarships?
F&M only has need-based financial aid, and so we do meet 100% of every student's demonstrated need, and because of that commitment, we actually don't offer merit scholarships.
Okay. Is there any sort of scholarship for, you know, Callie plays the violin. If she were to play in the orchestra, we know of other people before her that have gotten scholarships to schools for the violin, or anything along that line, or is it just need-based?
Right. So currently there is a music scholarship for $5,000, and I think through at least next year, it's called the Courtney Adams Scholarship. I think through next year we'll have it. The future of that scholarship is actually being discussed at a senior leadership level on campus, and so I'm not certain of the long-term future of that scholarship. However, it is something historically that F&M has done, and I would anticipate that we'll also have that scholarship available next year. However, the vast majority of our available financial aid is need-based. The Courtney Adams Scholarship is the one exception to that need-only rule that we have currently at F&M.
The other question was, we were talking about the endowment.
Mm-hmm.
What is the endowment?
Right, so it's right about $350 million currently. I think a little bit more than that, but I'm not sure of the precise amount. Yeah.
So how are the presidential scholars selected?
For the Courtney Adams Music
Or
Award.
reading something from the FISC guide, or do you no longer do that? The presidential scholars and a $7,500 tuition grant.
Oh yeah, so that's probably an older version. This transition to need-only financial aid occurred about 5 years ago when Dan Porterfield took over as president. So if that's an older version of the FISC guide, that information might be a little bit out of date.
Okay. And the other thing is, was it Matt? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Matt. Callie made an appointment. We're coming to see Franklin and Marshall on our spring break.
Oh, wonderful. Great to hear it. Yeah.
So April 27th.
Okay.
We're doing a tour. And, are you there? Are you available to touch base with beforehand, or?
Yeah, certainly. Let me just check. Actually, I'll pull my calendar up to make sure I'm available on that date. One moment as I just pull my calendar up here. I apologize. You said it was the 27th of April?
Yeah. 10 a.m. I think is what she said.
I'm actually going to be, unfortunately, I'll be traveling for the college at that time.
That's okay. I just.
Yeah. However, it's great that she's coming on campus, and we do value demonstrated interest in the admission process. And so getting on to F&M's campus can only help a student's application. Has she thought about potentially doing an interview? We do encourage students to take an interview if they have time to, and you could just hop right on our admission website, and you can register an interview straight from there. Wouldn't say you'd need to do the information session. It's going to be pretty similar to all the information I've given you today. But I would say tour is definitely helpful, and maybe think about an interview. If she doesn't want to do an interview, it's not mandatory, but again, it can only help. It gives context to the application, and we always appreciate that.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Wonderful.
I think that was it. That was very informative.
Oh yeah, well thank you for coming out today. Just before we wrap up, I'll give you some of the deadlines and sort of admission procedures for F&M. I know she's probably sort of at the beginning stages of her college search, but just so you know, F&M does early decision. Early decision 1 for us is November 15th. Then we also have a second round of early decision, which is January 15th. And we have this process that's called the early financial aid estimate if she's thinking about early decision. So she can see from our office what financial aid would look like before you sign that contract, that early decision contract. So if F&M does end up at the top of her list and she's thinking about early decision, I would encourage that. We can have those conversations down the line though. Regular decision for F&M is also January 15th. We do a very holistic read. That's why I would say interviewing can only help because it does demonstrate interest and it really does help us get to know her as a person. Even if I'm not the individual interviewing her, which is a possibility, then we will still have someone in our office get to know her and chat with her, and it can only help.
Great.
Can I just ask a quick question? What percentage of your students are you accepting through the early decision application processes versus regular decision?
Right. So we get about half of our class from early decision 1 and 2 combined, and about half of our class from regular decision. And the one thing I forgot to mention, this is relatively important, we are a test optional school. Yeah. So that means that you don't have to submit your SAT or ACT scores. I'll just give you some averages just so you know them. Our average, we look at math critical reading, and so we still look at it on a 1600 scale. Our average is for SAT is about a 1300. Average for ACT is about a 30. We superscore both of those tests. About a third of our students are enrolled through the test optional process, and the admit rate is the same between students who submit and who don't submit. So there's no bias either way. However you want to submit, you can. I was admitted to F&M test option. I'm a big advocate for that program. What you do is you choose to submit 2 examples of writing from your junior or senior year in place of submitting your test scores. And so you can submit writing over test scores. I think it's helpful to allow students to have that opportunity.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this as well. I'd love to do it in the future as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.